Welcome to CAM Matters, Condos, Co-ops, HOAs, and beyond. Betsy Barbieux is an informational leader in Florida on community association living, rights, and obligations. She is an expert on the rights and obligations of owners as well as the association. If you live or are planning to live in the state of Florida, there's a good chance you'll be part of a community association. And by the end of this show, you'll know a little bit more about community associations and why they matter.
Welcome to CAM Matters. I'm your host, Suzanne Lynn, with Betsy Barbieux. And Betsy, we have got a show today where we're going to be drilling down into some details and getting some clarity on phrases and definitions that seem to be going kind of over people's heads sometimes.
Well, and it's very easy because the legislators don't write well.
Yep. Where law comes in, there's a lot of confusion. Well, let's start with what's the overall reason you wanted to do a show where we're drilling down and kind of explaining things that may be taken for granted in the CAM world and the CAM verbiage? Why did you want to do something like this?
It revolves around the theme reading without understanding.
Okay.
And I often tell the students that are in the pre-licensing prep class, I often tell them, don't sit here and read your book over and over and over again to get ready for the test. You can read it all you want to, but without more explanation, you won't understand anything that's in there. Keep practicing on the practice exams. So it sort of evolves from that.
Okay.
And then I have realized through the years that there are a lot of questions and misunderstandings that owners and board members have because they're reading words that have kind of a peculiar meaning, I guess you would say.
You could interpret it differently. Yeah. You probably could interpret it the way you want to interpret it. Right?
Oh, yeah. Now that has happened recently, that they interpreted something the way they wanted it, and it was so far off base that it has caused ultimate,
but Betsy,
chaos in the community.
The important thing is that they are going by what they're reading in the book. It's not like they're changing the words. It's just understanding what you're reading.
Just didn't understand what they read.
Let's talk about that.
Well, and the phrase that comes to mind first, which is kind of what started this in my head, is that they read the phrase, 10% of the members can call a special meeting for the purpose of recall. And they took that to mean that if they got 6 people, which would be 10% of their membership, if they got 6 people to sign a piece of paper, the board of directors would be recalled. And that's not what that says. I mean, it might sort of sound like what it says, but what it means is that 10% of the membership can petition the board to schedule a membership meeting. And then at the membership meeting, there's a certain procedure and a certain vote that has to be followed to recall the board.
Okay, so one interpretation is with 10%, you can schedule a meeting. Another interpretation is we can overtake and fire and
a board with 10% of the people.
Right. This is a huge chasm.
And there's a huge difference in that. And there's several places in the statute that it uses the word call, like 20% can petition to call for this or 10% can petition to call for that. But it doesn't mean that that's all it takes. That's just the petitioning process to start the special meeting of the membership. That process, that's all that means.
So what mess has happened because of this?
Oh, gosh. Well, that was the one where we've done a show before. I had to call the police and empty the room. In the meantime, that group of people, that 10%, created their own board, which was illegitimate. They fraudulently changed the SunBiz information, which, again, is one of those terms that if you don't know what SunBiz is, you don't know what I just said. Right. But there is a state agency, the Department of State, that has the Division of Corporations that we keep records of who our current board members and officers are. They fraudulently changed it and put their names in it, and then they went to the local bank and opened up a bank account using our site.
We're getting into major legal.
And then they convinced some of the owners to redirect their funds to that bank account. This is stealing. It's a misdemeanor to fraudulently change the SunBiz document, and then it's stealing other people's money. They finally have contacted an attorney, and the attorney told them they had to give the money back to me. So I got the money back, and my real board, authorized me to change the SunBiz back to the way it should be. Wow. But this is stealing.
So circling back, the whole reason we went through this was to explain that if you don't understand what you're reading, you can get yourself into not just a misunderstanding, but legal issues.
So, and, calling an attorney and checking with the Department of State and the state attorney's office, it is a misdemeanor. But it is so far down the food chain at the state attorney's office that they're not going to prosecute this group.
Sure. Why I love this example is because it opens up the door to say, what else are we not understanding? Because they were absolutely positive they understood what they were reading, to take action on it and bring other people on board to have them follow.
Illegal activity.
So I'm just thinking, what might be really common language in the CAM society and CAM world, maybe, one of the things we wanted to do today was revisit some of the terminology and make sure that you're understanding what seems like basic, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and understanding. Like I was just looking at business meetings versus informational meetings.
In the pre-licensing course and in the board training, I will make the statement that the board meetings are the business meetings of the corporation.
Okay.
And that just kind of goes, okay, in one ear and out the other, until I say business meeting as opposed to informational meeting for the owners. The board meeting is not an informational meeting for the owners. The board meeting is not an informational Q&A for the owners. The board meeting is for the board to get its business done. It makes money decisions, contract decisions, handles vendors, handles violations, any of those business things that they need to do. It's not a Q&A or a chat for the owners.
It makes so much sense now. That really puts in perspective when you're doing testing. Don't just read the book. You've got to talk. That what you just said, I could read those words 10 times and still not understand.
You could read it a lot. And since you're saying that, let me just get a little thing off my back.
Okay.
Speaking of having somebody to talk to, there are more and more online pre-licensing and continuing ed courses, which means you have nobody to talk to. The new CAMs are learning nothing. They're doing online class, online testing. They're not being encouraged to join professional organizations, go to networking groups, go to luncheons, go to trade shows, go to in-person continuing ed classes. They are learning nothing. They have no support whatsoever. I know that Grace Systems is doing live classes, but they're on Zoom. I'm still doing live classes in the classroom. I don't know how on earth you pass the state exam without discussion, without being able to ask a question. So anyway, that was just
I think that's absolutely the perfect reason why, as an example, we're breaking down these terms. I want to go to the difference between residential and commercial condominium.
The CAM license is only required for residential communities.
Okay. But
until I say as opposed to commercial, and then they look and I say there are such things as commercial condominiums. They're warehouses, office buildings, doctor's offices can be commercial condominiums where you don't have living quarters there.
Okay.
But they're still organized under the same Chapter 718 that a regular condominium is. So we only have to have a license if we're managing a residential condominium or cooperative or homeowner association.
How would you ever know that if you didn't have that discussion? It would just go right over.
Yeah, it just, you read residential and you go, okay, well, it's important, but we don't know why. And
Right.
it's because, especially on the pre-licensing class, you're going to probably get a test that uses the word commercial in there, and that would make that answer wrong. It's not, it does, you don't need a CAM license to manage a commercial condominium, but you follow the same laws. Okay, go thing.
All right. Betsy, we're going to dig in. Let's take a little break and dig into some more definitions so that we understand what we're reading and what we're hearing more than just what's on the surface. We'll be right back.
Are you ready for a new career? Do you have skills or interest in management, real estate, construction, maintenance, accounting, strategic planning, project management, budgets, human resource management, lawn and landscaping, pool services, or any other expertise needed to operate a community association? If you do, community association management could be for you. For more information, feel free to email Betsy at betsy@floridacamschools.com or visit the Florida Cam Schools website at www.floridacamschools.com. Florida Community Association Management continues to grow. Career opportunities abound.
And thanks for coming back. We are digging deep and diving deep into terminology so that things that are just on the surface when it comes to CAM verbiage and statements don't just go over your head, so that can understand really more what you're reading, because it's important. And if you go back to the beginning, you'll see what mess can be made when you don't quite understand what it's actually meaning. Betsy, one of the things that you talk about is the difference between big vote and little vote. And this is not with the size of the person voting, right?
Right, not the size of the person.
Okay.
No. We had that lesson discussion yesterday at an annual meeting. And your documents and the statutes, legislators, bless their hearts, they're only little two configurations of owners, but the legislators and attorneys have figured out 7, 8, 9, 10 different phrases to use to describe one of the two votes. And it depends on whether the language in the documents or the statute is saying that it's a vote of those present, or if it's a vote of the entire membership. Okay. So for example, if you have 100 owners total and 60 are there at the meeting in person or by proxy, and the vote required to pass whatever you're voting on is a majority of those present, the number of affirmative votes would be 31 because you're using the 60. But if the documents indicate, or the statute indicates, and you have to really look at it and really read it, it might say that it's a majority vote of the entire membership. And if that's true, then we have to use the 100, and that would make the number of affirmative votes 51. So in my world, since 31 is littler than 51, then we have little vote, big vote.
The simple way to remember it.
And it doesn't matter whether the percentage changes. And sometimes you'll see percentages that are majority or 2/3 or 75%. Right. And it's not the percentage that makes it a big vote or a little vote. It's the words afterwards. Is it indicating a vote of those present, or is it indicating the whole entire total group? That's what makes it big vote or little vote. And I get that question emailed to me all the time. People are saying, which vote do we need on this one? Because the language in your bylaws or in your declaration or in the statute, I think the legislators must have had a game on how many different phrases can they use for those kinds of votes. It's amazing to me.
Somebody won. Yeah.
And speaking of legislators, yesterday I had the question in a group. I was the chair of a meeting, and I had to do a little entertainment during the time they were voting or counting the votes. So I gave them a little listen. And one gentleman raised his hand. He said, "When you say legislators, what do you mean?" Okay.
At least they're asking, but this
yeah, and I'm honored that would ask, in a group of 100 people. So I said state congressmen and state senators, for the state of Florida. He said, you mean in Tallahassee? I said, yeah, in Tallahassee. They're the ones who write your laws. And then it became obvious that as I was saying the word statute, I'm gonna have to start saying the word laws. Because some people don't grasp and have never in their life used or said the word statute.
Right.
And I'm not saying statue. I'm
Right.
Statue of Liberty, whatever, bicycle trophy. I'm saying the word statute, which is a law. So when I say that the statutes say, I mean law. And that was done by the legislators, our House and our House of Representatives and our senators in Tallahassee, not Washington, but in Tallahassee.
The more we dig, the more questions there are. And I mean, again, going back to the very first example of the legal trouble that just not understanding the terminology can get you into. I mean, I shudder to think how many boards are not doing big vote, little vote right. And
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Once I explain it, and in our classes, we look at the phrasing as it's written, and I say to them, tell me if it's big vote or little vote. Because the phrasing is often different. Sometimes in the statute, in the law, it's different in the same paragraph. They can't even be consistent in the same paragraph.
All right. Well, we've got a few more to go into. Let's talk about the difference between may, will, and shall. Because honestly, if I were to just read it, it's all the same.
And it is not. It is not. One of the examples that I give is that in the law, in the statute, and this will get me into something else too, so I'll have to explain something else. But there are two sets of laws in Florida. There's the Florida statutes that is created by our House and our Senate in Tallahassee. There are 4 statutes, but then there's also the complementary Florida Administrative Code. And that's more of an amplification and processes and procedures of how to implement the statutes.
Okay.
So a lot of boards and owners and some CAMs don't know about the 2 sets of laws. And if you don't know those, then you're missing half of what you're supposed to be doing. So for instance, the must, will, may, or shall, the statute, the law over here says that the fee to renew our license every 2 years may be between $50 and $100. And then the phrase says, based on fees set by the division. Well, that phrase just goes right over most people's head. Sure. And what that phrase did was kicked it over here to the Florida Administrative Code people and say, you set the fee. But here's my line of thinking. When I first read that the fee to renew my license may be between $50 and $100, and I'm looking at that and I'm going, I choose 50.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that.
Right.
So then I get a bill for $105.
Right.
It's like,
right.
This was way back years ago. How did this go from may be between $50 and $100? Who decided it's $100?
Right.
And so over here in the Florida Administrative Code, it says that the fee to renew our license shall be $100 plus a $5 unlicensed activity fee. So when you see the phrase in the statute, in the law, that says based on fees adopted by the division, or based on rules adopted by the division, or based on procedures adopted by the division, that means there's another whole set of laws over here that tell you what to do. The same is true with elections. In a condominium election, the laws in the procedures and the statutes for that are about this long in the statute, but over here they're this long. So if you haven't read both, you don't know how to have an election.
Wow. All right. Well, let's keep chopping on. We've got the difference between directors and officers. That's a great one.
Oh man, and this goes back to corporations and people just are resisting wanting to understand a corporation. A corporation is a great entity, and it's a great tool, and we did a show on it. So if you're watching, you can go back and watch that show. But in a corporation, any corporation, and there are little ones, big ones, there are national ones, state, throughout your state, your local plumber is probably a corporation. Of course, we've got big corporations like Exxon, but then you've got Kiwanis, that's a corporation. You have Chamber of Commerce, that's a corporation. You have American Cancer Society, that's a corporation. So they are the way we live as groups of people with a common purpose. But in a corporation, the membership, the constituents, the shareholders, the stockholders, the members, whatever you want to call them, that belong to this group, they elect a board of directors. And that process is described in their bylaws. Every corporation has a set of bylaws nationwide. That those directors then elect their officers. So then they will elect their president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and whatever other officers they have. The members do not elect the officers. So what I'm saying is, when you run for a board seat, you're just running for a board seat. When the elections are, you're not running for president or secretary, you're running for a plain board seat. But at the end of those elections, all you have are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 board members. You have no president, secretary, treasurer yet.
Okay.
That annual meeting of that group is adjourned. And then the new board, which may still have returning board members, everybody starts as nothing.
Okay. All equal.
So they're all equal, no officers.
Right.
That group then elects their officers, which could be the same president from the year before, but it's not automatically the president.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay.
It's not automatically. So, and I've had discussions lately of people saying, well, the secretary's seat is coming open. She's going off the board, so we have to find somebody to be the secretary. I said, no, that's not the way that works. No. If all your board members have a 1-year term, then everybody on the board, their term ends at the annual meeting. So if they want to be reelected, they have to run for the board.
Okay.
That does, but then once they do, that does not and they win, that does not automatically put those people back in their officer position.
They've got to be re-voted into.
Voted
Right. Okay. Let's talk about organizational meeting. Why do you have to have, what is exactly, now that we're digging into details of what, now I'm afraid to assume, what's an organizational meeting and why?
Well, that's what I just described. The organizational meeting is after the members elect the director.
I got you.
And the way that it organizes itself.
Okay. Okay. Well, now that's easy. Now that you explained it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the board president or secretary or treasurer, if they run again and they're reelected, they are not automatically still the president, secretary, treasurer.
Perfect. That is now cemented. I've got that. All right. Let's talk about the difference between assessment and special assessment, because man, I'm just taking a test online. I'm just learning online, like, oh, assessment, special assessment, it's the same thing. Like, no.
The assessment is what the law calls it and is what your documents call it. But almost every homeowner and board member will resist using that word. They will say condo fees, dues, maintenance fees, HOA fees. They will use any other phrase other than the word assessment, because they think that the word assessment means special assessment.
Okay.
The regular word assessment is what you'll read. It is the regular amount of money that an owner pays for their share of taking care of the property.
Okay.
It's their share of the budget, in other words.
Right.
The special assessment is when there is not enough money to make it to the end of the year.
Okay.
Or you have a special project that you don't have what we call reserve funds.
Kind of over and above something.
And so then the Special assessment is the board saying, we need more money from you now.
Okay.
And a lot of that is going on in Florida now because of insurance premium increases. And we're still dealing with the storms for the last couple of years. And I know some of the owners over in the Brevard and Volusia County areas, they're being charged $40,000 special assessments per unit. I haven't rebuilt so much, and then insurance premiums have gone up. So special assessment doesn't make anybody feel special, but
It's over and above.
But the word assessment is not a dirty word. It's just the regular amount of money that an owner pays for their share of the operations and maintenance of the property. And the thing is, which nobody likes to hear, when you signed your closing documents, you agreed to pay whatever it takes. You already agreed contractually, whatever my assessment is, whatever my special assessment is, you've already pre-agreed.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep moving on with, okay, this one's really going to confuse me. Nonprofit, not-for-profit, and profit. I got profit and nonprofit, but why nonprofit and not for profit?
And I think we did a show on that too. Yeah. That's back further back, but again, it keeps cropping up. The nonprofit, and that's being real picky with words, versus not for profit. A nonprofit is an IRS designation that's a tax exempt corporation and has a lot of filing requirements. They're usually your 501c3, 501c something or others that you can make a contribution to, like the American Cancer Society or Boys and Girls Club. You can make for your church. You can make a contribution to, you get a tax deduction.
Right.
That's the nonprofit. There are a lot of stringent reporting requirements to the IRS for those. That is not us. Most all of our communities, associations in Florida are not for profit, which is a corporation designation that the state of Florida gives to common interest groups of people. I wish they had named it something else. Most of us who are CAMs know that as Chapter 617 in the Florida statutes, and it would be better named as Common Interest Corporation. So it's people who have a common interest. They're not in the business to make money as a return on investment, to actually put money in their pockets. It's people with a common interest. Like the example that I often give is the parents of the kids in the band at school. The band uniforms are awful, and the school never has any money to buy new band uniforms. So the parents of the band kids organize themselves into a parents booster corporation for the sole purpose of raising money through the sale of hot dogs and Cokes at the ball games, and the money is used to buy the band uniforms, not as a return on profit on hot dogs.
Gotcha.
And that's a common interest corporation, and we're the same. We have organized ourselves into a corporation. We have a board of directors and officers, just like those band parents do. We, as homeowners, pay money to ourselves in the form of an assessment, and we get the pool cleaned. We pay money to ourselves in the form of an assessment, and we get the insurance paid. So we're the same. We have a common interest.
Betsy, this has been so enlightening. I mean, to see that the difference between nonprofit, not-for-profit, assessment, special assessment, I can see exactly why you wanted to do a show on diving deep into this stuff. It can just really be confusing, and understanding what you're reading. Every word matters, right?
Every word matters. And unfortunately, there would have been better ways to write it. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Nobody asked you.
Some people could have written some things better.
Right.
And in the statutes, I mean, they just don't even make any paragraphs. It just all runs together in the law.
Betsy, we're so grateful for you. I mean, I really love this show, just breaking down the details and understanding what you're reading. Don't assume, because circling back to the very first example, you know what assuming does. And that's what happened with them. So,
and it's pretty much just fractured that community.
I'm sure. Well, we love you. We appreciate you. Going to give you the final word on this.
It would be better if you read with understanding. Don't be willfully ignorant.
Powerful to end on. Betsy, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us for CAM Matters. And be sure to share this video and information with people that are in your circle, because Betsy is the leader in Florida when it comes to CAM and things that are going on in that area. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking and subscribing. We'll see you in the next show.
Thank you for listening to CAM Matters. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. For more information, feel free to email Betsy at betsy@floridacamschools.com or visit the Florida Cam Schools website at www.floridacamschools.com. Information provided on this show is general in nature and does not constitute legal advice. Please contact a licensed attorney for your specific situation.